welcome to everyone. Um, I grew up in an industrial town of Jamshedpur, where around me, most of the personal and collective identity that I saw was linked to being a worker, and with a lot of positivity, with a lot of purpose, and a very clear sense of pride. And as we grew up, including my own family, I saw that the change in destinies of many families around me, and that for me, that's what good employment and being a respected worker in society gives you. It kind of really changes the destiny of a family and overall a society. And although workers are probably the most critical foundation of our society, there is unfortunately a divide. Not all workers are the same, and in spite of being the reason why our everyday lives are functioning because of these workers, a vast majority of mostly unorganized and frontline workforce in our country has remained invisible, unseen, unheard. And most of us here, I'm sure we have had amazing experiences and a very romantic idea of being on the highway, seeing very colorful, decked up trucks passing us by, sometimes giving us very important reflections and sometimes giving us also very good humor. So the one-liners painted behind the trucks. So while the trucks themselves have been a very major part of all of our lives, the humans driving those trucks have been neglected at various levels, economically, socially, ethically, and sometimes right up to policy levels. And we are not talking about just a few hundred people here. There are 8 million or so truck drivers in India, each one driving sometimes up to 14 hours a day. Most of the times they are 300 days away from their families, alone. And although they literally and even like figuratively, they are the driving force, behind our daily lives. 98% of them, according to the research that we carried out, led by PPHF and Aastha, 98% of them do not want their family to get into this profession. That is the lack of respect and pride that these critical but invisible and unseen workers face. So this dialogue series, firstly, is an initiative and a space created with the intention of bringing thinkers, change makers, influencers, and workers together to bring to light the stories, the insights, challenges, and most importantly, ideas that can make a difference to truck drivers, to sanitation workers, and to millions of these unseen workers who build the society, who kind of really drive our daily lives, but they remain unseen and unheard. So, as we start this dialogue series, in today's kind of first episode, we welcome Dr. Lakshmikant Palo. He's the CEO of People to People Health Foundation and a leader of various development programs which have been impacting underserved communities across the globe. Dr. Anoop Khandelwal, a mentor, an expert, and a leader in the supply chain and logistics industry. Later, we'll be joined by Mr. J.V. Ramamurthy. He's a global advisory board member and head impact initiatives at Sampark Foundation. And he's also a mentor to a lot of development initiatives across India and internationally. We'll also be joined by Mr. Suresh Vedula. He's been ex-director at Nokia India. He's been a leader at google.org and a very active expert when it comes to digital transformation. We are also joined by Soumyakant Dwivedi. He's a senior leader in supply chain and also an originator of a lot of this initiative, bringing in a very unique perspective in terms of looking at the life and quality of life of workers, especially the workers who remain unseen and unheard. So as we begin, I would love that if we can start with Soumyakant sir, and just I think if you can talk a little bit about your perspective on the philosophy of this dialogue series, which is the unseen workers. How did you think of it? What makes them unseen and invisible?
Thank you, Sumit, and thank you all the panelists for setting up this discussion. So let me bring back this journey maybe 2.5 years back or 3 years back, where Dr. Palo and we were discussing on how to make an impact in the public health side by creating a community of people who can contribute. And our journey started with an emotion actually to do something for the unseen workers, people who keep our daily lives and society running. And there are various segments to it. I mean, this one part is truck driver, but if you look at the segment of unseen workers, there are sanitation workers, there are, even ASHA workers, and there's a whole range of people who just keep our society running. But sadly, their work conditions, their well-being, and the dignity is compromised. And specifically to trucking, the respect and dignity is a big element of what we want to bring back to this profession, so that if you're able to do this from civil society and with this partnership, this can become a most sustainable profession. If not, this can have various implications to the society, including, price increase, inflation, and also gaps within what we have today available in our table and chairs in the room, or the products which is available is without which without the truck drivers we cannot achieve that. So they're actually this unseen worker who keep the wheel of economy running, yet underappreciated. And that is the job and the discussion which we want to do. How do we then bring this up, more action oriented, more execution oriented? So the thoughts to action, I think that is how we are trying to drive, in which Dr. Palo had brought up in the past. So, and we have this group called Aastha, which is where we have various people involved, like Dr. Prashant Yadav, who is the chair. We have Dr. Palo, PPHF, sponsoring this initiative, and KSPI with Anup being part of it. So we're building this community to make an impact, and we will hear soon of how and when are we executing few things. But yes, I give the audience back to you, Sumit, for the discussion. Yeah.
Great, great. And I mean, let's talk about, since now that we're talking about truck drivers who are, 8 million unseen workers that we're talking about. So let's talk a bit specifically about ideas on the betterment of truck drivers and their lives. Dr. Anup, if you can talk a little bit about some of the thinking and initiatives at Aastha, or, you might be involved in other initiatives as well, connected. If you can share some of the ideas that you are a part of when it comes to bettering the quality of life of truck drivers.
Yeah, thanks, Sumit, for having me. So as you introduced that, I come from the supply chain and operations and logistics background over almost 35 years of my industrial career. I've seen this particular segment very, very closely, and dealt with them, spoke with them, and then, have had very active interactions with them. And so as mentioned by yourself and Soumya, Kant also, the condition of this large segment of society, which is a very vital segment of the society, is very deplorable. And as you rightly mentioned, that not only the community is, is having problems of their well-being and welfare. On the other hand, the commercial activity of the country is so much dependent on them. Now, government, as all of us know, is running this PM Gati Shakti program, which is to bring down the logistics, build up the logistics infrastructure of the country. And today, our logistics cost is somewhere around 14 to 15%. Which, in countries like China is around 7 to 8%. So there's a huge opportunity of, bringing down and making the Indian economy more competitive. So towards that, if we want to do that, then I think the welfare and the upliftment of this particular vital segment of the society is very, very important. So in Aastha, as Somikant mentioned, that we began this journey about 2 years ago with the kind of leadership of Dr. Palu also, and some of our some of the supply chain professionals and the thought leaders got together. So we have been working in this area, and we have tried to interact with the industry, with the truck owners, with drivers themselves. So we've had a couple of webinars and face-to-face seminars to understand their problems. And then we find that we also ran a research. It was done almost covering the entire golden quadrilateral of the country, where we got very good feedback in terms of what is happening on the ground, and So and then, we have also tried to, some of the output which came out of that research has been now kind of, we are trying to take up with the ministry at the policy level, that what more can be done about this thing. And then the launch of the health and wellness centers, working on their, the little bit of health infrastructure along the highways. We've also launched the vaccination program for these drivers during the COVID times. So we are trying to work with various stakeholders to bring them into the limelight. So that's my, input on this.
Right. And you mentioned a very interesting point, like you also mentioned about there's a business side to it. Often when a lot of literature online, or a lot of like past, in various forums, there is a natural tendency for, when we talk about truck drivers and then their welfare, it is largely seen only as a social issue, right? But it's not the case. Like there is this issue is something that connects, of course, social aspects, but it connects to business, and it connects to kind of overall, it is a national issue as well. How do you see this, sort of a potential for a win-win, or a potential for kind of linking both, business growth and at the same time impacting, lives of people who are under pressure?
So actually, not, I shouldn't claim that with our efforts, but in this general consensus across the industry, across the truck operators, and even at the government level, that much needs to be done for this community, and so steps are being taken, though gradually, but in turn they are helping the truck drivers. At least they're the hardships which which they face on a day-to-day basis, like the highway infrastructure, which is now improving over with leaps and bounds over the last 3-4 years. It has improved, or rather 7 to 8 years, and we have seen that earlier they used to really sweat with the bad roads. So that was a major harassment for this community. So the launch of the fast tags also have helped. Otherwise, they used to be harassed they used to wait at the toll nakas for hours together. So that has also helped. So road conditions, the launch of the fast tag system, the launch of the UPI payment system, that has also eased their harassment, which is but there are people who harass them, but at least the infrastructure and the ecosystem which was there around the lives of the truck drivers is gradually improving. So something is happening, but a lot of steps need to be taken continuously. We have to be taking in this direction.
Got it. So one note is obviously, at a national level and at a larger systemic level, there are some changes happening. Other important stakeholders, as you mentioned, of this entire system are transporters and the industry and the corporates. How do you think they can be engaged better? How can they be brought together and connected to this entire system, which ultimately makes the life of a truck driver better?
So, Sumit, we have, as I mentioned, that in the last couple of years, we have had 2-3 face-to-face interactions, and then during the COVID times, we had multiple webinars, and we have tried to bring in people from the industry, people from Truckers Association, and we've also spoken to quite a few truck drivers. We've been interacting with the industry. We have called those industry leaders to talk in some of our forums, and so the awareness, as I mentioned, the awareness level is there, and some industry they do recognize that it's a very important cog in the wheel, and unless they do something about them, it is not going to work. So, like, for example, we have interacted with Coca-Cola India, and they have been a major user of truckers. So they have taken various steps, like the restrooms for the drivers when they come within the premises, and then drivers training, safety training, eco driving, which is also very important, because now businesses have to be sustainable. sustainability is paramount in the businesses, and stems out of that is the environment social governance, the ESG part. So now all the industrial the businesses, industries, they're very they recognize the importance of sustainability, and therefore they are taking a lot of ESG measures, the environment social governance. So within the not only the environment, the social and the governance piece they are addressing, because customers are demanding that, investors are demanding that. So therefore they are quite sensitive, and they are taking actions in terms of the welfare of the drivers. But a lot needs to be done. I mean, a lot of CSR funding is being diverted to this area, but not much is happening. More needs to be done. So we have been trying to, within the Aastha umbrella, and along with Dr. Palo's help in the PPHF, also we are trying to work with the Ministry of Transport, and we have also, shared our findings with them. And so a policy level, thrust is also to be given while we work in parallel with the industry and the transporters.
Right. I mean, and Dr. Palo, you worked extensively in health, and of course, that is a big factor when it comes to the that connects the truck drivers issues, and even in terms of the efforts of these companies, they're all they're trying to engage with the truck drivers using health as a theme. So can you share some perspective on the current health situation of truck drivers and kind of their life, and how it affects the entire system?
Thank you, Sumit. And yes, in last 2.5 years or a little more than that, we have been working on this issue, and under the Aastha umbrella. What we see, even recently, I was also traveling to over 2,000 kilometers by road. Also, I was trying to see what improvement has done for truck drivers. So infrastructure has been improved. A lot of new roads, and very world-class roads are coming, and some are under process also upcoming very soon. But what I found, I don't see much change for the facilities, more exclusively towards truck drivers. There are many good infrastructures are coming for general population as a whole, like say very good outlets, maybe motel kind of ideas, but that has not changed. So if you see the truck drivers, the health issues, challenges of truck drivers in India, there are several studies says more than 50% of the truck drivers are facing health related issues across country. So there are many things like both communicable and non-communicable disease are there. So if you see, even simply taking the rate of say obesity, are much higher than the general population among truck drivers. Over 70% of the truck drivers have improper food, while they are on road, and also there are several health issues. The morbidities are very higher among truck drivers than the general population. The need, what we did assessment, and based on couple of series that we discussed with truck drivers and the transport owners and the industries, in last 2.5 years, we see what could be a roadmap for safety of truck drivers. That's what the key question and theme that we run through with several stakeholders. So interestingly, we found we don't have very exclusive health and wellness programs or facilities for truck drivers in this country. Even globally also, if you see, not many in in many, maybe US and a couple of other countries have few, but that's what the lacking. So we have done some programs like say TB and HIV, or maybe some very eye screening, those kind of very ad hoc programming for truck drivers. But overall, the health and wellness, looking more holistically, that has not been done so far. So that's the reason the study that trucker study that we did last year are highlighting all those issues. And also it's talk about the responsibility of different key stakeholders, how they can contribute in significantly, they have to contribute in changing the scenario currently we have. Thank you.
Right. And I mean, when you talked about the need for creating a holistic, program for truck drivers when it comes to health and wellness, it can't be just like addressing one issue and ignoring, all the other parts. So how do you think at PPHF, at Aastha, how do you think in terms of the approach while looking at a holistic program for health and wellness, and how would you also what messages would you give to somebody who are trying to impact the health of truck drivers, other organizations?
No, thank you for that. So by increasing access to essential health and wellness services are going to certainly contribute in improving the driving performance of the truck drivers, and also overcome some of the hardship they face while they are on road. So one of the strong approach that we have been designing and believing and trying to put that framework and work on those areas, how we can be more inclusive, as I said, the holistic program for truck drivers and their family. Because sometimes maybe we are thinking some programs around truck drivers, but we are missing the family, which is very essential part of the whole intervention. So truck drivers and families becomes more prosperous, safer, and healthier. That's where we need to work together. So both the socio-economic aspect and those need to be worked out. So Aastha Health and Wellness Center, the assessment and the prototype we trying to see through a society lens, through our study also, we found some of the critical things that we need to put into that framework. One is the strong, more exclusive counseling for truck driver on different health issues. Primary healthcare service, we need to provide not only look very specific disease specific intervention, but as a whole, general primary healthcare services more exclusive while they are on road. That's one thing. The other part is basic medical testing facility also need to be there, and some essential medicines, access free medicines among those, and referral services and preventing screening services. Because the referral services, if they are on road, if they are going to a nearby health center, ideally it should be on roadside. If not, at least if they are taking some healthcare services, there should be some referral linkages so that in next stop or maybe few 100 kilometers or maybe in their hometown, they can get these services. So those kind of linkages are very essential also. And preventive screening. So we have most of the programs around truck drivers are more curative, but preventive screening is very important also, and counseling and mentoring and engaging them. So we need to bridge those gaps, in the providing the essential critical health services for the truck drivers. Existing highway infrastructure, as I mentioned, are not much dedicated towards them. So we need to work on creating, even the infrastructures are coming up, but a part of that infrastructure, if a facility with the infrastructure coming with more on as a restaurant or maybe some food chain, but a part of that could be also for the truck drivers, health and wellness center, and also more high quality with more genuine price. Those are the some of the. Otherwise, if you create the infrastructure of high class and the cost is very high, they cannot afford that. So we have to see a balance and keeping a price cap of those quality services for them. So those are the couple of things that need to be addressed, and we have seen those inputs coming from different stakeholders through our study also. Thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to Dr. Palo's comment. So I wanted to bring three elements. One is, the 3I approach, infrastructure, information, and investment. So if you look at infrastructure, we don't have to even go to US. In Malaysia, I've seen a couple of those. Every 100 kilometers or within that band, there are petrol pump and resting stations, and there is clear, everybody knows. And the biggest thing which I captured, and Dr. Palo, just to see how we can, I know government is trying to make similar through NHI and trying to build infrastructure, but the biggest catch of my thing, it was on equity. So that is meant for any traveler, whether it's a traveler on the road on the taxi or a truck driver. They have adequate parking spaces just next to the highway, but equity, everybody can go and sit there, including a truck driver. When we say truck driver, I think the element of respect, which is what Aastha and PPHF we want to drive, is how to bring that equity, because it should not be, oh, that's the place for truck driver and that's a place for, so we of course converge in dhaba, but how do we bring that equity as we build the infrastructure? That's a big element. I caught up in Malaysia, which is there. They have this. It's not segregated for different community. It's all the same. Everybody goes in. The second part on the information, I think that is where India is much ahead in terms of digital. So how do you bring the information today, even with your staggered infrastructure or fragmented infrastructure, we still have different elements of those resting stations. How do you bring the information together and help the truck driver in terms of his, knowing where there is a farmer's shop, where there is. So I think that is the opportunity. And third is investment, that, okay, why are people not investing? So it's up to us to see how we bring together and start investing, because maybe it's not profitable, but at the point it is also impactful. So it could be the economies of scale, this can really scale up, because as I said, this is not limited to only one segment, it can grow. So those are the three things which I thought I'll bring up in addition to Dr.
No,
Pal.
very important. Thank you, Samakant, for that, because access is not only creating the infrastructure, but the creating access of this more vulnerable group to those infrastructure, and several access, cost, all those things need to be taken care. Otherwise, those are going to be accessed by those upper class or middle class people who are traveling on road, and that's what the case today. And we need to see, and also the investment, social investment for truck drivers, even if I don't have a percentage, but a very significantly very low. I think that part need to be addressed, because we so far we have very specific, disease specific, or maybe very issue specific intervention, like capacity building or road safety awareness, or maybe a little bit on one or two area of health issue. But we have to see more holistic, and as I said also, linking with their family, because the lot of social issues, how they are more deprived on those mainstream social chain. So how we can more inclusive growth we can see through this intervention. Thank you.
Great points. I'll also take a moment to, I think, Mr. Ramamurthy and Mr. Suresh maybe have also joined us. Welcome to the panel. Good afternoon to both of you. And I'll just come back with a couple of questions to both you and both Mr. Ramamurthy and Suresh. But before that, actually, one point that came up, from both Soumyakant ji and Dr. Palo, is you talked about access, and you talked about, Dr. Palo, you also talked about counseling and mentoring as important factors. Can you shed some light a little bit when it comes to the relationship that truck drivers share with health? Like, of course, the system can do a lot, there is a lot of things that other people can do. But when it comes to health, like your own attitude and your own relationship with health is a big factor. What is your perspective on how truck drivers think about their health, and what is the relationship that they have with the health system that is there currently?
Yeah, so one experience that we had last year when we started this exclusive COVID vaccination drive for truck drivers. So when we organized this exclusive camps for them on roadside, the number has increased, because during that exit interview, many of them highlighted that if there is a good access to roadside services, we don't have a day to spend on a vaccine or any health services that we want to get it from a health center. So that will be more convenient. So that is the triggering point for us to think about the issue, how we can create. So lack of access to health infrastructure and facility is one of the bigger area of concern for truck drivers, and also the service fee. Even if there is a service fee for some consulting on health issues, it should be very minimal and good quality. And so the quality of life and productivity, are also very critical, linked with the health and wellness of the truck driver. So one other thing also, we see the insurance, health insurance. We try to understand that. Well, that's also very low among because many of these truck drivers are not in the direct payroll of these companies or the truck owners. So they are more ad hoc basis employer. So no one takes care, and driver, they are not aware about the health insurance. They don't also want to invest because their pay is very low wage, and benefits also does not include health insurance. So lot of awareness around that also needed, and also the insurance companies should also come up with some kind of programs, maybe through the CSR initiative. Even the trucking like manufacturers or the other motor vehicle related companies to invest more on the health insurance also. That's another aspect we should cover, the essential and linking with the other government insurance schemes. So those are the areas has not looked more integrated way of offering those health and wellness services to the community.
Got it. Actually, I mean, talking about health insurance, if we can go a little bit, focus on that a little bit. And in fact, this is something that would love to pose it to Mr. Ramamurthy. Like, sir, I mean, insurance generally, I mean, from my understanding also, is always a systemic issue when it comes to insurance in terms of work, right? Like, the company gives insurance, there is somebody else is the beneficiary of the insurance, there are always people that subsidize it. So it's never a simple chain. It's always a complex system at play when it comes to something like insurance. How do you see the entire kind of system of insurance happening when it comes to truck drivers, and what should be the approach of like thinking about it? Like, what should be the approach of bringing together the right players to create the system?
Thanks a lot for inviting me. I wanted to just tell about this. In fact, some time back, myself and Mrs. Soumyakant and Mrs. Suresh, we did some homework with some of the insurance companies. Individual insurance, both private and public insurance companies, are not the one who will decide individually. It is better if it is made as a policy by IRDA. IRDA wanted to, because there is also a loss prevention society, which they are paying a lot of money and a lot of litigations. All the insurance companies are fighting, especially with the truck drivers, and also about the property truck as a movable movable investment, and also as the goods lost, etc. So it's a big headache. It's the value is lesser, but time taken for coming out of it is becoming pain for many of them. So they are also interested in avoiding this type of topic itself. So there is a society which they, within all the higher insurance companies, are also kept keeping aside certain amount of money, and they wanted to come out of it because their name is prolonged for a longer time in this type of litigation. So if we make it into an IRDA as a policy, if we can give them an education, how much of truck, I mean, the losses that were happening on account of all of them, and also with respect, I'm saying consultant paper, if we can make it, and then we can push it through IRDA and also through Ministry of the BFSR at BFSI, I think they will be willing to look at it a little more seriously. The IRDA is also looking at solving this problem at the where this is started. That is one point. And also I have talked to some of them on the insurance companies, both public sectors and private sectors. They are willing to do it because compared to the cost involved and the litigations involved, they are willing to take on this.
Got it. And I mean, you mentioned the policy side of it being a very critical factor, and kind of that's it needs to happen to some extent as a top-down thing. Health insurance in various parts in the country has also been an access like issue. Like not everybody has equal access to something like health insurance. Not everybody understands health insurance in the same way. Any thoughts about like how does the panel view the attitude of truck drivers or like transport companies towards insurance and their access to it?
See, the insurance companies, insurance state, many of this, I agree with you that insurance still, the percentage of people who had been insured in the recent past, especially for health, especially in an unorganized sector, is far lesser than what it is in the organized sector. But the various state governments are also concluding. Like in Andhra Pradesh, they had more than 6 crores of people who had been covered by this, and various other state governments are also coming, and PM Yojana schemes, so many things are coming up. That is one part, and they are not finding that it is difficult for, if they know what is the quantum of number of people who are going to be covered and what value they will be covered, what they were able to bargain with the various insurance company. Naturally, it is on a tender basis, and they wanted to do it with the terms and conditions, etc. Like many other public sectors have done in the recent past. Many of them are not covered by health insurance policies, but many of the public sectors also covered it. The same way they are willing to do it because their rate at which they will close this deal with the conditions specific for their industry or for their customers, they are willing to agree for it. Covering up to 5 lakhs or 10 lakhs or whatever, 5 lakhs even is more than enough. Then today they are nothing, they are not covered. And also if they can be made into ESI part, that is also, see, they are not organized sector. But if somewhere our association can bring them under ESI fold, from whichever the address it is, that itself is, there is a lot more, it is like CGHS scheme, and ESI will also cover in a proper way, both inpatient and being as an outpatient, and also treating them for the medicines they require, etc. This is one part. Also, I felt this, unfortunately, there are no, when we on one side we wanted to talk about 5 trillion economy, and the other side we are missing that this is a very important ingredient or enabler for that to happen. So this is one thing, they have no the choice but to make it happen.
Right. And I mean, we talked a lot about certain changes that have been happening, and a lot of those changes that we talked about in some senses were digitally enabled or digitally led. And this is where would love to invite Mr. Suresh into the conversation. I mean, you've worked extensively on taking digital technologies to market and making services available to various communities. How do you see the role that digital and technology in general and the role that it has to play when it comes to truck drivers and unorganized sector?
Yeah, good afternoon, and thanks a lot again for inviting me. This is an honor, really. And so very quickly, I think first let's acknowledge that digital is all around us, especially in the last 10 years. Ever since the India stack became popular, and we have to give a lot of credit to Mr. Nandan Nilekani, who drove this as part of the Iceberg Foundation. And that digital stack has become foundation for UPI, which now we see billions of dollars of transactions every month. Aadhaar, digital banking, information flow. And in 2015 onwards, we've seen a revolution with smartphones coming in everywhere, affordable smartphones. And then subsequently, the telecom sector, we've seen the revolution in the data points. India is one of the cheapest data rates in the world. So there is a massive confluence or a tsunami of things that are happening, and
Mm.
more than 800 million plus subscribers in India today use a phone or a smartphone. So I think it's a given that India, and like Mr. Ramurthy said, we are today, let's say, $2.5 trillion economy. We'll definitely be $5 trillion before the end of this decade, if not more, and it will be driven by digital. So no questions about it. I'm extremely bullish that whatever we do, eventually, the rise of the
Right.
digital services is going to be the front and center. Now,
Mm.
however, look, I think India is a massively layered economy. There are the top 200 million people who seem to be the so-called enjoying the benefits of any other revolution. You can call them middle class or above, but the vast majority of almost close to 600, 700 million people who simply are struggling to make a living. And I think I would dare say put the truck driver community, the so-called
Right.
unseen community, in that segment. Uh, so they use it for information. We all know that. Communication. We all know that. Some of them might be using a smartphone and probably using a UPI to make small payments. I see the bigger challenge, however, is awareness and
Mm.
information flow, and more importantly, call to action. From a marketing point of view. What do I mean by that? Last
Mm.
time I checked, there are close to 16 or 17 health care yojanas by the central state governments. Very few
Mm.
people know how to actually get into a medical insurance for themselves or the family. There are a lot of educational benefits offered by various state governments. Many of the truck drivers may not even have the wherewithal. So I think my view, therefore, just to focus on the key point is, can we make a smartphone as a center of the universe of delivering awareness,
Mm.
access to various services, and clear call to action? Awareness can be done through maybe an app that can be built on a smartphone that can work with existing WhatsApp or any other form of communication, but push notifications can happen to allow the truck driver who's on the road most of the time just be aware of the surroundings, where is an access to a hygienic food, where is a good gas station, where there's a secure area he can park for the night, and more importantly, if something goes wrong, he can reach out to somebody.
Right.
The components of that are, we talked about it, access to health information. We recently also realized that having access to legal services is becoming important.
Mm.
Many a times the trucks get impounded. There are a lot of nonsense that happens on the roads, and these truck drivers, actually their trucks are impounded, they sometimes get arrested for no fault of their own. So can we also provide legal services through a means, essentially making the life of a truck driver better? We can't really change a lot. It's going to take a multiple generations, but meaningfully, can we make small differences? Access to health insurance through partners
Mm.
who can say, look, pay just 1 rupee a day of a premium or 30 rupees a month and get maybe 2 lakhs of coverage for your entire
Right.
family.
Right.
Pay just 5 rupees into some fund and get access to educational loan for your family. I think these are some of the measures that we need to do. And finally,
Mm.
call to action. Information becomes sometimes overbearing. A person might get a message about the latest Bollywood hit, a song, or a viral video. In all that cacophony, a truck driver may not have the incentive to actually act on something of importance. So, can we just say, hey, if you actually do this, you might get another 2,000 rupees as a bonus every month, some sort of a
Right.
gamification. So I think, let me just quickly summarize, and I'm sure there'll be other questions as well. But how do we leverage the smartphone, the cheap data, provide easy access to information, make sure there's a call to action, make it
Mm.
push notification, and finally, give some incentive for the truck driver to make the thing, and then let that person spread the word around. Many of
Mm.
these good, well-meaning programs don't work because nothing trickles down to the truck driver. We all know that. So
Right.
get a cohort of maybe 5,000 people, truck drivers across the country, who see the benefit, and then 5,000 becomes 50,000, becomes 500,000.
Right. Yeah, that's, I mean, excellent points. And when it comes to, I mean, digital, as you
Just
rightly
to
said, it's
add
so,
one, just to add, Sumit, one what
yeah,
Sir
please,
is
please go on.
mentioning. I was traveling, Suresh, on by road last week, almost 2,000 kilometer. All the national highways, roads are very good. Uh, I wanted a FASTag, to be, installed. Then the dealer of the vehicle, they upload a highway delight. I can show this, something like this. So at least the FASTag one is working. Other things, they have the order food, check the nearby, the other facilities, digital menu, all kind of things all are not functional, but at least something. I don't know whether this is developed by NHAI or, but some things are happening, and all these vehicle dealers, they know this, they are using. So that's something probably this app is Highway Delight. So there are probably already things are there. We need to see an integration, maybe to those already existing applications, or maybe evaluating and seeing what are missing point. How can we support on those areas? Thank you.
Yeah, actually, this is. I mean, you hit the nail on its head. This is the question I was coming back to, because when it comes to digital, there are always a lot of services, and digital is never developed by a single entity. I mean, today digital technology is very democratized. Every company is a digital company in some way or the other, right? So when it comes to kind of really using digital as a way to transform truck drivers' life, it is naturally a case of integration. Like, it's not one app that will ever solve a problem. So when we look at digital, how do we also view it with a lens of collaboration, integration, partnerships? Like, any thoughts on, like, how do we look at digital, and in a way almost like business view of bringing these different parties together? How can people come together and sort of make a digital system work?
No, that's a very good point. I think you're absolutely right. There's no one magic wand that you can wave and make things happen, right? It has to be always collaboration. So let me just, in no particular priority, but the Ministry of Highway, Government of India is a very important partner. The Ministry of Health. No, we all know that there's a tremendous push by both these ministries to try and improve the livelihood of not just truck drivers, but many of the general population. And we've seen,
Right.
like Dr. Palo just mentioned, some of the highways are brilliant. I mean, I think the Prime Minister is inaugurating a new Bangalore-Mysore highway today as we speak, and it's world class. And I've also recently seen and drove along the new expressway, not fully done yet, but so anyway, the things are improving. There's a fantastic infrastructure that's coming all around us, and it's just a question of time before we get there. Partnerships are critical. We need to ensure that we stitch, for want of a better word, since we are in the talking about digital APIs, if you will, in connections basically. For example, Ashok Leyland, we all know, have a wonderful facility called the Mobile Health Truck. They have a health on wheels or whatever. Last time I spoke to them, they said, look, maybe they have about 20, 25 trucks in some strategic points across the country. There's a number you call, they just arrive with the very basic first aid kit, or even maybe a little bit of a quick machinery available inside the truck. Can that become 200? Can that become 500? So I think we need to find a way to work with some of the truck fleet construction manufacturing companies. There are fleet owners who have a lot of stake in the ground. They have. I mean, very soon they're going to have struggle finding this. They're going to struggle finding truck drivers very soon. They're going to be that challenge, because we all know that this is not a most sought after profession. So we need to work with the fleet owners and make sure their livelihoods overall improve a lot. We can work with health insurance companies, particularly in the private sector. There are a lot of these new age digital private sector health insurance companies that are very eager to provide services, but they're struggling because the last mile of acquiring these truck drivers as potential insurance is very challenging. So we can partner with them. So these are some of the very, very early thoughts. Banks are very interested in providing low cost loans for education. Yet they find that, again, the last mile challenge, subscribing, getting new people to sign up for loans is all going to become a bit of challenge. So how do we then ensure that there is a center piece of digital application, if you will, that becomes a marketplace for all these services to be integrated through multiple partnerships? So you're right. infrastructure technology is the enabler, but the real key to success is partnerships. And Government of India is a very, very important element of this partnership.
And what are some of the, I mean, with creating a good partnership structure comes again, like incentives and sort of the idea of win-win, right? Like that's what brings people together. So what are some of the key incentives for, for different parties? And again, like this question is to the entire panel in some way. Like, I mean, you can pick a stakeholder and like, what are the right incentive stakeholder matchings that can be created?
Thank you. I'll just quickly take one stab and I'll let the rest of the panel members also respond to that. I think if you were just take the private insurance sector as one player, right? What's their incentive? I think we all know our nation is mostly underinsured. Of a nation of 1.4 billion people, barely 5% people are actually insured of any kind, whether it's medical or whatever health. Most of them is driven by the respective companies, but once they're off the trucks, no insurance. So that's a big challenge. So these private sector insurance people are very keen to acquire new consumers into the insurance fold. So there's an incentive for them to actually offer so that they have a long-term relationship. So that's an incentive I can see clearly from a private sector, from a government or other people. I would love the rest of the panel members to respond to that.
No, I think the other incentive, which is actually, I would say, not incentive, but it's a proactive way of managing the truck driver shortage, because if we address the issues for their well-being and a more holistic approach, which is what all of us spoke, we will also retain the truck drivers profession, as a sustainable basis. I think when we speak ESG, I think sustainable workforce is one key parameter. We talk of sustainability, but if the sustainable workforce is not there, then we have other challenges. So I think that's another way of looking at it.
Yeah, and because this is a more multi-sectoral in nature. Now, if you see, there are different parties, different components coming together to see the health and well-being. Ultimately, the outcome is the well-being of the truck drivers. From social perspective, from economic and health and other critical cultural and other things. So here, it's not only benefit in terms of the financial gain or something. Maybe private sector will see differently. A social sector will see differently as a social goods creation, welfare approach. Even the government will also see it differently. So, but some benefit, whether it's a social good creation or a financial gain, but from a social business context. That's what I would put. It's not as a, because it's not going to give a, I think one of the panelists also talked about a huge financial commercial gain. It's not like that. It's a social cause of a lot of key critical pathways need to be defined to address the issue. So there could be more sectoral outcome or benefit to each segment of the stakeholders. So that's what we need to see, and each sector knows what value they will add and what benefits they will get out of it. Thank you.
Great.
We have also got to see, the efficacy of programs like Atal Bima Yojana or Ayushman Bharat. These programs are there, but as I think Suresh also mentioned that the awareness level, and then if there is some kind of a push notification or something, or there is some kind of other facilitation which can bind this community that hey, these programs are already there, and then kind of lead them to adopt these programs. I think that also is an issue.
And that's right, Dr. Anup, because in one of our assessment, where we are doing, for one program, if you remember that we see that awareness is one of the bigger portion among the truck drivers and the unions, and no one cares actually. Neither they themselves cares for that.
Yeah,
so that part is very critical too, and linking to the government like Ayushman Bharat or other state. The states also have different health schemes. linking with that, even we see that in our general population also of the programming, health programming, the awareness where to go, how to link, how to get those benefits from the government insurance. At least there are 5 lakh coverage, and many states have increased that also up
Yes.
to 10 lakh. So how to link them? So empowering them and linking, that means some facilitating organization or network should come between to do that, because they are not empowered, neither they are aware about this. So that is even one piece. Even if we are talking about whether the private insurance will come and others, at least there is a government provision existing. But the issue is that how we can link them and who is going to do that. So that's very important. Thank you.
To one point, I agree with you that the awareness is not there at all levels. If you ask, if we have to talk as a 5 trillion economy, or if it has to do it, or a supply logistics cycle time, if some measurements have to be made, naturally these are the end points. But for that to happen, we cannot have disorganized or unorganized way of working. I think a consultant approach paper saying what is that in India we are as a truck driver, as a industry, as a transportation industry, how including the manpower for it, how these people are working or working conditions and their health and the time of, their safety standards and their health standards and their working conditions, and also what is that if it is and what is the type of idle capacity it is generating for the industry, for the trucking industry, for the truck operators, or also for the truck manufacturers. I think that's a consultant approach paper is required based on the facts. How it is organized in place like Europe and in US. I have seen it in Europe. Their working hours are very clear. It's not that anytime they will do, the evening they will come and park their trucks and then they sleep in a motel, and next day morning, they're like any other industry. So next day they go, next day morning after 8 o'clock, and during the lunchtime they again have a break like that. So they had certainly their speed is regulated, their sleep is regulated, their working hours are regulated, etc. And of course, traffic is also a lot more disciplined than what it is. So these things are all there. So this information, if we can give it to some of the stakeholder ministries, like Ministry of Surface Transport is not aware. NHAI may not be aware. And also some of the organizations like Ayushman, Ministry of Health, Department of Ayush, all these people are also not aware. And then we have to ask them what is the specifics that we wanted to do so that our industry is in par with the rest of the world. Anything, and today the current gap is this much, and what type of steps that we have to take so that the gap can be bridged. And because of this, what will be the impact study that will happen both as an industry and also making them unorganized to organized industry and making them attractive, and also where the attrition is brought down, and also direct and indirect employment, how it can grow up, and how utilization of trucks, it is going to be beneficial to all. Finally, at the end of the day, it's only one thing. The government, the industry has to be benefited, the individuals, the employees should be benefited, and the government also should be benefited. If 3 of them are together, government has no hesitation in doing what is right. And naturally, they won't do it for a particular name of the operator or for a particular manufacturer of a truck. It will be in the name of the industry association or anything like that. And there are a lot of people who are, and also if the families are also brought in, like integrating with the families, their health standards, work-life balance, standards of living, etc., and removal of anxiety, and like what Mr. Suresh said, they making them a lot more attractive. Removal of legal help, whatever is needed, it can be removed. I think then it will become an attractive industry. And I don't think anybody is the salary gap, etc. If you look at it from the type of number of people who are put for each truck is lesser compared to the value of the goods they carry, and also the time they have to deliver it. I think everybody will put for it. And I really feel, no, and also if you take this and go to IRDA and Ministry of Ayush, all of them will be certainly, they will be willing to look. Naturally, this, since it's a subject being a parent ministry, will be surface transport ministry. So the ministry is also, if he can be educated or if he can be given what is the type of problems that they have feeling and what is that we wanted to do, I'm sure his own buying will be there. The and then if he can do this and if he can bring out in the form of insurance or health insurance or a group health insurance or family insurance, etc., I think that is also possible from the ministry side and Ministry of Ayush side, and also buying them medicines at a bulk prices and distributing them through this, and also motels. Every NHA has already started putting more motels where we can, like US, they can park their truck and then take the rest, etc. That also can be a lot more streamlined, etc. Finally, and also Ministry of, when we are not even, many of them are, one is minister, second is ministry, various secretaries or joint secretaries have to be put. Third is the public sector, or organizations like NHAI and then and IRDA and various public and private insurance companies. They are all brought in. I think the buy-in will become better. And if we can push it through, like what Mr. Anup saying, is the awareness is the biggest problem. If we can introduce these parliamentary committees are all there for every type of ministries. If we can bring them and we can educate them, or if we can put our presentation to them and take their inputs and then make a amendments to it. Finally, I think it is possible to do. It is not difficult because government is also are worried. Basically their problem is the ignorance. Once you know that there is a credible data is available, verifiable data is available, they are also willing to come forward for it. I feel it and also if we can make this through CII or Ashokam or anything as a select industry issue, I think they are also willing to take this as an industry issue than an individual truckers issue. That is one. And also this, we have to, for this we require some amount of a team who can work in it in all these places, and then the same team can give variety of inputs from time to time. Finally, it is making it into advocacy, making them fully be aware of what is the picture and making them a draft policy, and from their policy to a regulatory norm. That is enough. When we are putting regulatory, we can also define what are the safety standards, medical standards, working standards, etc. Those can also be defined so that they are benchmarked with the rest of the developed world.
Great. You've outlined a very end-to-end actually system. That this is very, very insightful. Last couple of questions, after which I think I just want to open up the space to, we have so many people joining us, would love to take a few questions from them as well. So one is like, I think this is a bit of a summary question in the sense that I think we've talked about a lot of ideas and opportunities and challenges. If we, again, question to the panel, like if you had to see difference being made, with all of these ideas implemented, what does success look like? And if we had to select, let's say, 3 or 4 metrics, that okay, like these are the things to measure to see if actually all of this is creating a difference. What would be those 3 or 4 metrics, that the panelists would suggest? It could be metrics tied to the truck driver individually. It could be tied to different stakeholders. But what does success look like in terms of like being measured?
Okay, maybe I can start on a couple of ideas. If we see wants to bring the change in the health and well-being of the truck drivers and their family, I think the work-life balance, one of the bigger issue which we know that the long hour, and continuous driving, all those, and while they have the lot of challenge at their family and social front also. So work-life balance and the financial well-being, these are the two which will also underlying the health and wellness aspect together. so that how they can deal with if they have the death or some maybe there is no post-retirement, they early retirement from their job. I think the average age is 40 years or so. So what kind of other social support and considering their family as a whole, those are some of those areas more as a outcome or impact that we can see whatever we do as a success, successful success indicators in future. To see this as a more healthier driver is a safer driver. No, that's what the concluding we want to see. But it needs a lot of stakeholders thinking sectorally and to working for a multi-sectoral complex issues like this, so that we can impact positively the health and well-being of truck driver and their family. Thank you.
Any other thoughts on like what does success look like, or metrics you would like to measure the impact in?
So I think, not to repeat, but the happiness index of the truck driver is a key element. So that is a holistic way of managing his well-being. So if you're able to get that, and his family, I think that means that the ultimate objective is to get his respect and dignity, and also his profession, sustainable profession in that way. So the happiness index of a truck driver, that would be the one I'd look for, which will be a more holistic view. But yeah, there'll be subsets of that.
Right.
That's pretty much the same. So I think there should be a mechanism to kind of capture the whatever on a scale of 1 to 10, the NPS, if you will, of the truck driver before the initiation of this program, and maybe take a dipstick at the end of 12 months and see what's the temperature like. And so that's the only way, because there are schemes and millions of schemes, and it's easy to get lost in the whole gamut of schemes. So it's end of the day, it's truck driver and the family. That's all.
Right. And so before taking few questions from the audience, my last question is, again, the intention is to create a space, I think, for these conversations. This it's a dialogue that needs to continue. We need to unpack it from various parts. As Dr. Palo said, ultimately the solution has to be sectoral, like multi-sectoral people coming together. How would you, again, open question, how would you like to see this dialogue series proceed? Like who should we invite to this space? What would be a good sort of direction, so that the right ideas emerge, so that we go from discussion to action?
I think this should be the Aastha, the whole design of Aastha is it's a knowledge platform where the voice of unseen workers can be raised and taken to the appropriate authorities for action. So because the group is a kind of a facilitator to the issues and putting them, framing and directing to the right stakeholder for action. The group has limited mandate. It's a pro bono contribution of their knowledge, experience, ideas, and bringing maybe time to time doing some synthesis of the evidence and putting them, packaging and taking it to the next level for policy and program implement. That's the whole design of Aastha working as a knowledge platform. So what we could start working on the social audit part of the issue and bring to the attention of the right stakeholder for action, because a lot of action are going to happen with those authorities or the program implementer, so that their attention and engagement in the whole process is very critical. That's what I see. And we as a group be inclusive and take issues and highlight that. No, I think this is one of the small attempt today probably to bring certain ideas, issues, challenges, and take it to the next level. That's what we can continue. So maybe we can have more sub themes, in future. Say maybe insurance separately, or maybe health issues separately, or maybe other economic aspect, or maybe children's education of truck drivers family. Different issues. What they deal in the society. Those could be a sub series or the continuation of the series. Thank you.
So maybe adding to Dr. Palo, we can do it in three dimensions. One is to continue engaging with the policymakers, like we can invite people who can contribute. The second, contribute to the discussion, because that is also shaping thoughts, and there are a few things happening in the industry as well. So the second will be to look at industry, so to understand any best practice or understand the gaps. And the third will be the truck drivers and the family. I think over a period of time, we always do a lot of intellectual discussion, but on the ground, what's happening. So that will be another way to bring in direct discussion with the truck driver and the family and bring up this three dimension together. It can be done separately, but something Aastha we can lead it from that perspective.
So just to add that, Somakant, as you were mentioning, so we already have a program next week on the 19th, where we have called a few truck drivers and their families at Manesar, at one of the fleet owners' premises, and some of us will be there to talk to them, and I think we will get some good data, good thoughts from that meeting also. That is one. The other thing which I was thinking was that over the last few months we have had some discussions. We've launched the vaccination programs and other interventions. I'm not sure whether of course the 19th program we can use as a test bench, whether we can work on the awareness, have camps where we can check on the insurance, or try to facilitate their enrollment with the available schemes. That may be some of the initiative we can also work upon.
Great. I think these would definitely make the dialogue space complete. At this point, I think there were a couple of hands up, and I would like to open up the space to a few audience questions. I can see VC. You have raised your hand.
Yes.
Have a question?
Yeah, good afternoon. Thank you. I just have a question. It's not a question, just to check. We were talking about different stakeholders, but if you look at the truck drivers spectrum, this transport unions are also very powerful. So how we consider them, or how we engage with them for the upliftment of these drivers? This is a thought.
Yeah, so a good one. Let me take a stab at it. I think that's a very important point. In fact, even 4 or 5 years ago, before COVID pandemic took place, there was a All India Truck Union Association, the big umbrella, and there are multiple associations, we know that, but one of the larger associations had actually tied up with the Ministry of Transport and Health to try and create some sort of communication portal to keep the truck drivers aware of basic stuff like how to enroll into a PM Jan Yojana, whatever the health program, right? Very few people, a lot of people struggle to even get on to just get a basic insurance for themselves. So I think the larger point is they're extremely critical. They influence obviously the thinking of the truck drivers who own allegiance to those unions, and without the union president or a union functionary saying something positive, they won't move, especially when it comes to doing benefits. For example, many of the truck drivers are suspicious that if I use this app, am I being tracked? And there's always a back of the mind suspicion about the why are we being asked to sign up for any such digital service, for example. So I think we have to take them along the way. They act as influences. So if we didn't mention them during the discussion today, but they're an extremely critical part of ensuring that the truck drivers are actually aware of the benefits of the program.
See, just to add, thanks, Suresh. From my experience in dealing with this community, as I mentioned, that coming from the operations background, my input is and my observation is that the truck unions are very, very positive as far as if you have to launch any of these benefit providing programs. We in fact interacted. Usman was also there, involved from the PHF with the during the vaccination program, and they were very constructive, and they were they got their families and all of that. So I would say that it's good to go through them, and we can communication can be facilitated, the people can be mobilized, and their approach will be by and large very positive. Barring they may have some collective bargaining discussions with the industry or with ministry, etc. That is a different issue altogether. But for rolling out programs for the benefit, larger benefit of their trucking society, I think there is not going to be any hurdles which will be posed by the truckers union. That's what my experience and observation is.
Any other questions from the audience? You can put your hand up, or you can just introduce yourself and ask your question.
Yeah, so I just wanted to, this is just an extension from where you, I just want to pick from where you said that, what would be an indicator or a matrix, how will the success look like? So I just thought that, the success would look like, in a scenario where a teacher asks a student or in a class, what do you want to become in future? And, someone says that I want to be a truck driver. So, the kind of image, which reaches a child, so there has been no positive marketing of truck drivers also. The way they have been shown, the way they are being treated. So there is no dignity attached, first of all. So, so people say, I want to become a teacher, or I want to become a lawyer, or I want to become a Batman. It is because of the, the media, the paper or the film they watch. So I think not much of literature has been written, which is positive for the, which brands the truck drivers and that fraternity in a positive light. So that needs to be done a lot. And also, the marketing part has to come in place. That is very important. Simultaneously, working on the ground and also, building an image of truck drivers. So I think that will happen, and once dignity comes in place with the truck drivers, I think things will roll in a better way. Yeah,
Really good thoughts. Yeah,
good points.
any other thoughts or questions from anyone in the audience?
No, I think I just want to echo what Usman said. I think it's a brilliant point. It's about creating a positive image. I still sometimes listen in the late in the evening, Suhana Safar by Anu Kapoor. I think it's become a brand in itself. I'm just wondering how many of the truck drivers are actually listening to many of these when they drive on the roads, right? And if you can use that slot, I'm sure most of them have access to FM radios in many of the cities, to create a positive story. Somebody, hopefully not while driving, but somebody sitting at dhaba and actually phoning in and sharing their stories, creating a positive story in their language is very important. वहाँ पे वो इज्जत नहीं है. I think that's a good point. At the end of the day, you might earn maybe another 5,000 rupees, but if you don't improve overall dignity that is attached to the profession, whatever we do eventually might not deliver the fruits we are looking for. So thanks for that point.
Yeah. And it also carries I think the philosophy and essence of this initiative, which is if they are unseen and unheard, I think first they are looking for a place where they can be seen and heard. So definitely a very, very striking thought. Last call for a few questions or any thoughts from the audience. Okay, so we'll wrap up. Thanks to everyone. Thanks to all the panelists for joining in. Very, very insightful conversation. Very relevant and very actionable ideas shared, I think, and that's really one of the motives behind this dialogue series. And most importantly, I think, like, it is a start. The aim was not to kind of do this once. I think that really the intention is to open up a space, and as we discussed, bring all the critical stakeholders and all the critical influencers who will help in achieving the goal of creating a difference to the unseen workers and specifically to truck drivers. And I hope we can continue this momentum and keep this space alive as we keep going forward. Thank you everybody. Thank you to everybody who attended and listened in. Please keep continuing to support the space. Please keep dialing in and sharing your thoughts with PPHF. They have social media. They have their LinkedIn page. Aastha has a LinkedIn page. Even if you want to reach out to us in terms of what you would like to see in this dialogue series, who would you like to hear from, please let us know on the social media pages as well, and we'll make sure that it finds its way to this dialogue series.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.